I never thought I'd be the person to tell you that everything you've been taught about learning is wrong. When I was an athlete, I competed in the discus throw. I competed in high school, college, a little bit post collegially, all of it. I was always drawn to the elite, those who made it look effortless, made it look easy, and those that could just step into the ring and deliver. We've been there. We look at the greats of anything that we do. It could be Picasso, Beethoven, Tiger Woods, Stephen Curry. It could be LeBron James, whoever. And we think that they make it look easy. And we watch them for hours, pause their videos frame by frame, and make sure that we're studying their position, studying their technique, studying whatever they do, their timing, their release points, all of it. And we just think, if I can copy it, I'm going to be that good, right? Wrong. We drill and we drill and we drill with thousands of corrections. And we have been doing this model for a long time because it's in us. When I was an athlete, when I competed in the discus throw, I was successful by all metrics. I was a 2-time Division III national champion. I was a 6-time Division III All-American, record holder of a few different records at our school. But by every metric or measure, I was successful. But a lot of the times whenever I stepped into that ring, I never really felt like it was mine. I never really owned it. Felt like I was a copycat or trying to be a copycat of other things. Competition or game day is always a coin flip. Whether it'd show up or not, it was 50-50. It never was really reliable. I'd watch where my implement landed and have no idea which version of me would come about or which version of me released that. And whenever I was successful and I did win, it felt like an accident, to be honest. Also, I just was so nitpicky of my technique. So if it wasn't right, even if I did win, I never enjoyed it. And it always felt like I was getting away with something. I was doing everything right, even when it worked, and I didn't know why it worked when those moments felt effortless. And it never could work on command. Now, almost, I want to say 5-6 years later, after going down a rabbit hole that completely changed how I see skill and learning, it's something that I can't go back on. There's a lot of people around me that have said that I'm able to pick things up pretty quickly. I just pick it up and I'm natural at it. And it's how I approach skill, learning, and practice just differently. I break through plateaus, which is something that a lot of us struggle with. And a lot of times it's just as easy as looking at things a little bit differently to break through something that you've been stuck on for weeks, months, years, whatever it may be. And I'm just going to let you know, I'm not a genius by any means. I barely made it out of high school. I barely made it out of college. And one, I'm not naturally gifted or anything of that matter. I'm actually quite stubborn, which I think helps from time to time because I always think that there's new ways or new things to go about or how to improve things. And I can honestly contribute that to this new lens that I kind of was stumbled upon 5-6 years ago. That's what I'm going to share with you today. I have one simple idea / framework I want to walk you through. Okay. The big idea is going to challenge something that you've believed in probably your entire life. This framework is going to give you just 3 simple questions to ask before any practice or activity session, whether you're in sport or you're working on an instrument, trying to learn a language, trying to better your craft in some way, shape, or form, or just honestly anything. And I've structured it so that you can start implementing it immediately. And there's something that has to come first, though, because if I were just to give you a framework and be like, here you go, you will need to understand why everything works and why it might not be working. Also, that's not doing anything for you. I'd be doing a disservice for you if I just gave you a simple template or a simple tool and said, here you go. That's not doing anything for you. So I want to back it up with my reasoning, my thoughts, and all of that. So let's get right into that. So first, we need to talk about the model, this whole lens. And if you want to get better at anything, you've probably been taught some version of this. Okay. You got to drill the correct technique, the perfect technique, and you got to repeat it and do it over and over and over until it's automatic. Build muscle memory. We've heard this time and time again. We got to stack the fundamentals upon each other like they're bricks or Legos, and we got to perfect each piece of the skill in isolation. Then we got to assemble them somehow into the whole when it matters most. This path looks more like a ladder where you just go one rung at a time, step by step, and eventually the goal is you reach the top. It makes sense, right? Well, it's what every coach, teacher, instructor, boss, whomever it is, teaches it this way. It's what every how-to video assumes. It's what every book about mastery or teaching you how to do something implies. You got to put in 1,000 or 10,000 hours. You got to put in the reps. You got to trust the process. You got to do the work. And you know what? Like, there's some merit to that, but it's how you do it. It's the quality. So, and when I was an athlete, when I was a sports performance coach early on in my career, I believed this wholeheartedly. Like, I wanted to be clear about something though. This model, even though it is something that we've been doing for a very, very long time, in my wholehearted opinion, it's stupid. People teach it and they're not stupid. I'm not gonna say that they are, because they're not. It's just what they've been taught. They are doing what they can do with what they have. And there's an incompleteness to it. This model of thinking is just incomplete in some sorts. It's making us feel that we are missing something here. And it has a cost that most people really never connect it to the source of it. The cost looks like this. It's a lot of frustration, plateaus that won't break, the gap on between how you perform in practice versus how you perform when it counts. And honestly, I paid that cost for quite some time throughout my athletic career. Yeah, like I said, I was successful, but I knew there was something I was leaving on the table. And honestly, you might be paying that cost right now. Here's what has always bothered me. Even when I was fully bought into the model, if skill is stored through repetition, if we're building some motor program that gets saved somewhere in the brain, why do my drills or activity sessions or my practice sessions never transfer to reality or when it mattered most? Why does every elite individual look different? Why do they look different? Every great golfer swing is unique to them. Every great basketball shooter like Stephen Curry shoots nothing like Kobe Bryant. They never look like Dirk Nowitzki or Russell Westbrook. They all look different, but they are all quote unquote elite. And if there's one special, correct, perfect technique, one optimal way of doing things, why don't the best all converge on it? If it were that easy, everyone would be doing it. And here's one thing that really, really got me. Why can someone who looks completely unathletic, who has none of the fundamentals, step up and absolutely obliterate people who've been drilling for years? I've seen this time and time again when I was a coach, and see this when I was in PE class in high school and in college. Some person that's just, we kind of write them off as, I'm not going to be mean, but nobody, and they come up and just dominate. I've seen it. You've probably seen it too. And with this model that we've been taught, it says this should not happen. But you know what? It does, because something there doesn't fit in. I stumbled upon a new lens back in 2020 when a great friend of mine, also a mentor of mine at the time, introduced me to something that really cracked something open in me and really answered a long lasting question. And he really didn't give me anything new per se. Like, he never gave me a new drill, didn't teach me a technique or anything of that sort, didn't really add another fundamental thing to my already stack or new way of doing things. He just gave me a new lens. Once I was able to see it, I couldn't unsee it. And here's the big idea. And I'm going to try to explain this as simply as I can because, one, it changed the way I look at, everything around me. It all kind of dives into perception and action, where these two are married together and they're not two separate things. The old model treats it like you are a computer. Information comes in through our senses. The brain processes the information. Then the brain sends the command out to the muscles. Then we perceive, then decide, then we act. 3 separate stages there. That's why when we drill movements, activities, scales, different sentences, we drill these in isolation. That's why we do it, right? We're trying to perfect the output, the action, and then it'll be there when we need it. That's the thought, right? Well, perception and action are actually married together. They're one continuous loop. They're never separate. They're always intertwined. You don't perceive, then act. You perceive through acting. Your movement begins before you've consciously processed anything and adjusts continuously based on what you pick up as you move or wherever you are in your environment. That's why I've called it my brand Calibrate, is because we're constantly calibrating our environment and we're always perceiving it and acting it. It's a dance between the two. And this is called perception action coupling. And I'm going to go a little bit more into why that matters. And the skill isn't retrieved from a filing cabinet somewhere in our brain or something like that. And then it's assembled fresh right there in response to what the moment offers. So when going back to my experience when I was a discus thrower, I'd do these practices where I drilled positions in isolation, where there's no crowd, no pressure, no variability in that matter. And I was training my body to respond to that specific environment. Okay. I was practicing by myself or practicing with my teammates and coach, practicing when there's nothing that mattered on the line. And the perception can be different from that sense when we look at it. An environment that doesn't exist in competition. When we look at it and we're practicing in this environment, this is not what competition or reality is. So the action that emerges from this is different or doesn't emerge at all, really. That's why drills, activities, these sessions or whatever never really transferred. If you're doing it in isolation, it never transfers and shows up in reality or when it needs to. We were not failing to store the skill. It's just we're failing to store something that couldn't survive outside of the drill or the environment. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, this sounds interesting, but is there an actual evidence to this? Well, actually quite a bit. There's a lot. And I'll give you a few examples here. I like starting from the very beginning. The first is from the 1930s, where we have Nikolai Bernstein. He was a Russian scientist. Basically, I look at it, the OG biochemist or biomechanist, sorry. He studied expert blacksmiths, master craftsmen who had been swinging these hammers for decades. And if this stored motor program were true, their movements would have been identical every single time, burned into muscle memory. It's just automatic. But he didn't find that when he put little light bulb electrodes on the bodies of these blacksmiths as they were swinging. He saw something remarkably consistent in their outcomes. They hit the target every time, but the movements were different every single time. And if you think about it, when you're a forger or a blacksmith or you're working with metal or any of this sort, you're hitting it and you're shaping the way it looks. It's like Play-Doh. You hit it and it takes shape of what impact there is. And so you got to react to what shape it takes. So it's never going to be same. If you kept hitting it in the same exact way at the same spot, then it just wouldn't look like what you're trying to make it. All right. Every time that they swung, it was different. Each movement was different because their joint angles varied, the timing varied, and honestly, no two swings were ever the same. Just think about when you're walking, you take no two steps are ever the same. No two breaths are the same. No two anything is the same. And every time that these blacksmiths swung, the hammer hit the same spot every time. It just was different in the movement or in the solution. And Bernstein called this repetition without repetition. Every expert performer or every person, every human doesn't repeat the same movement. They repeat the process of solving the problem, and they solve it slightly different every time. This was back in the 1930s. It's coming up almost 100 years ago that this was brought to people's attention. And we're still drilling like the goal is to stamp out variation and achieve perfection in repeatable form. The second one, actually, example is a more recent paper. This paper, actually, I love the title of it. It's called Asymmetry in Sprinting, the Myth of Perfection and the Reality of Performance. Is kind of letting you know what's about to happen here. These researchers analyzed the 2017 World Championship 100-meter finals. And these people are the fastest humans on the earth. It's crazy. Being part of that track and field world, sprinters are like cheetahs on the track. It's crazy. What they found, honestly, should end this debate on there's one perfect technique, one correct way to do things. The best sprinters in the world are asymmetrical. Their left side doesn't move at the same rate or the same way as their right. Asymmetry at touchdown average about 30%. Every sprinter showed a different pattern. And here's one of the key findings too that I found was the asymmetry had no significant impact on performance. They even talked to or even addressed Usain Bolt directly, the world's fastest man. He holds the world record in the 100-meter dash. I believe it's in 9.58 seconds. I could be a little bit off on that, but the question is, could he have run faster with a more symmetrical gait or symmetrical patterns? And the answer that they came up with was attempting to correct his asymmetry might have disrupted his natural biomechanics and actually slowed him down. And that's crazy to think. We think that if everything is perfect on both sides or is the same, that would actually hinder Usain Bolt's performance. That's crazy to think too. Because if everything was the same, that would actually break us down. And our bodies are built for variability, adaptability, different things. If we were built in a very symmetrical way, we'd be robots right now. And that paper really was blunt in his conclusion and said perfect symmetry is neither achievable nor necessary. And basically what that meant is this correct one way is a myth. So here's where things kind of take off a little bit. If skill is emergent rather than stored, if it's assembled fresh in each moment, then there is no single correct thing to chase. Every elite performer looks different because they are different. They are a different genetic makeup, different bodies, different histories, different perceptual systems. Their technique isn't a downloaded program they execute. It's their own functional solution to the problem. You do things the way you do them because of what you perceive with your body in that moment. I'm going to say that one more time. Uh, Basically, this is rewrites a lot of things. You do things the way you do them because of what you perceive with your body in that moment. That's not a flaw. That's how the system actually is designed. This means changing someone's technique really is fundamentally misguided. They do things that the way they do them is because that's what works for them. Yeah, we can alter that slightly to improve efficiency, but ultimately they got to work on it themselves, and it's giving them a different solution to solve that problem. When I was an athlete, I spent years trying to copy them, make my body do what their bodies did. And honestly, I came to the realization that I'm just not them. I'm 6'2", 230, 240 pounds. The greats out there are 6'5" and above, 260 plus. And actually, the new world record holder, Mikolos and Lekna, he's younger than I am. He comes from a lineage of elite discus throwing. He's, I want to say, 6'7". He's built to be a discus thrower, and he's the world record holder. The solution that emerged from their perception isn't going to work for me the same way. What they did won't work for me. What Jimmy Page did will not work for an amateur guitarist. What Tiger Woods did won't work for what Scotty Scheffler does. There's a reason why things like that fall apart when under pressure. It was never a skill. It was just someone else's pattern, really, that I was trying to wear as an ill-fitting suit. So this is going to be a little bit of the practical part. And basically, I'm going to give you 3 questions to ask before you do any type of practice, any type of lesson, any type of activity, whatever it may be. And I'm going to order them so that you can use them immediately. Think of these as kind of like a checklist in some way, but it's more about just like guiding your intention for these sessions. And these can work for a sport, an instrument, a language, a conversation skill, whatever it is. Just run through these questions. Question number 1 is, what information will be present when this skill actually matters? This is probably the most important question because I want you to really think about the real deal thing. You got to think about what context or information you're going to see in the game, in the performance, in the conversation, the moment of truth, basically. And sometimes you might not know that. But if you're able to at least emulate it a little bit and implement some aliveness to it, you're going to do a lot better than just dead drilling and doing these. It's basically, I want you to think about what you'll see, what you'll hear, what you'll feel, what pressure is there going to be, what decisions will you need to make in real time. And most people are just going to skip this part entirely. They just start doing things without ever considering what the actual performance environment looks like. Think about it. I went through a speech class in college where I practiced in front of a screen. And then when it came to me actually speaking in front of people, even though my class was very small, I think 10 to 15 people, it was tough. I was sweating and I crumbled a little bit, and it was tough. Why? Because I wasn't practicing in front of a person. I was practicing in an isolated environment. So if skill emerges from the coupling between perception and action, then we need to have the information present during practice or training in almost everything that we do, or at least as much as we can. Question number 2 is that information present in my practice or training currently? Look, I want you to be honest and look at your environment right now. Are you practicing or training or doing whatever in conditions that resemble reality? Are you drilling in a sterile condition, predictable environment that strips out everything that makes the real situation hard? If you're drilling a basketball move without a defender, you're just building a skill that couples with open space or no defender. And then when you go to play in a game, there's going to be not just one, not just two, but 5 defenders possibly in your face, and then everything's different. The information is not there. If you're drilling a golf swing on a flat driving range with perfect lies, perfect conditions, perfect feels, you're building a skill that couples with those specific conditions. Then when you get onto the course with uneven lies, wind, hazards, all of that, then the skill you built is just trash. It goes out the window. That's why you hear, if for my golfers out there, you hear it, oh, I figured out my swing on the range, and then you go out and then just duff it. That's what it is. So if you're practicing a language too, take this into account. If you're memorizing vocabulary, and instead of actually having a conversation with somebody, you're building knowledge that won't emerge when someone asks you a question and expects an answer almost right away. Like, you kind of see what I'm getting at, right? The information has to match, or at least match up as close as you can emulate it, or at least make it overlap significantly. It's never going to be a perfect match because you can't replicate the real deal thing all the time. Question number 3 is, if the answer is no to questions 1 or 2, what can I change? This is where things kind of get a little practical. You don't have to perfectly simulate competition, a conversation, a presentation, whatever it may be, because that's not always possible. But you can ask, what's one constraint I can add or modify to bring in some of that reality or real world information? You can add a defender, add a body, add time pressure, add variability in different positions or different areas. Remove the target you've been aiming at and force yourself to find it. Change the surface if you're able to. Change the angle. Introduce uncertainty. Every constraint you add or remove changes the problem, and changing the problem forces your body to find new solutions, to explore, to adapt, and develop the kind of flexibility or variability that can survive contact with reality. Let me give you an example on how this plays out. Let's say you are working on your golf swing. I'm going to run through this. So question 1, what information will be present when this actually matters? On the course, you have uneven lies, wind, hazards in your field of vision, pressure, and no 2 shots are ever going to be the same. Question number 2, is that information present in my practice? If you're practicing on a flat range, hitting ball after ball after ball after ball from the same spot at the same target with perfect lies, no. What can I change? Move around the range, hit from different angles, create uneven stances, or even stick something underneath the mat if you're able to. Add pressure by setting consequences for missed shots. Practice at like a live game, practice with distractions. That's it. It's really simple. You go through those 3 questions. And this isn't about practicing less. It's practicing smarter. You got to design your environments that contain the information that you're actually going to encounter when it matters. Let the skill emerge from the context instead of hoping it magically comes out of air and transfers to that context later. So if you're frustrated, if you're drilling and drilling and drilling and it never quite transferred, I want you to hear this. It's not your fault. You're not broken. You're not lazy. You're not missing some talent gene or something like that that these naturally gifted individuals have. It's just the model that we've been giving is given. You're just trying to store something that never is meant to be stored. There's no perfect form to copy. There's only your functional solution emerging from your perception with your body in this moment. Even right now, if you're listening to this video, watching this, you're perceiving this information, the way I talk, the way the video looks differently from someone else who's going to watch this, even myself. So there's not a limitation. It's liberation, honestly. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. And it changes, honestly, how you approach learning anything. This is just scratching the surface. And honestly, this rabbit hole goes deep, really deep. And if you are wanting to dive a little deeper, if you want to learn how to design environments where skill actually emerges and transfers, I'd highly recommend joining my school community for Calibrate. The link is in the description. And if you scroll through and look at what we cover, or ultimately what I'm going to be adding, there are going to be frameworks, there are going to be techniques and conversations on skill acquisition, learning, and honestly, how to apply this lens to literally anything you want to get better at. So go ahead, check that out. Again, link is in the description. Like and subscribe before you leave, because it's just a button click. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye.